James Senegal once said, technology helps us become more efficient and productive, but our business still has a lot of art as opposed to strictly science. Are you tinkering, self-learning, self-improving, experimenting with home labbing? And do you want to become a skilled IT expert? Well, you've found your new home. This is the Home Labbers Podcast. On this show, we'll interview top experts and dig deep to learn how they got started and how they trained their IT skills as a master martial artist in a Shaolin temple. And you know what? We're going to have fun along the way. This is the Home Labbers Podcast. And now your host, Viandu.
All right, let's do this.
Sargon, welcome to the podcast. So excited to have you on the podcast.
Thank you.
Before we dive into the home labbing topic, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so Sargon Khizeran, I hail from a good old town called Yonkers, New York. I've been in, fast forward here, landed in California, been in IT for a good 20-something years now. Currently, I do work as a senior technical account manager for VMware, supporting state and healthcare out here in California. I've been with VMware for about a year. Prior to that, it's been mainly a lot of customer obsession positions and operations in server x86 and virtualization.
And how did you get started with home labbing? And where did you get the idea?
Oh, gosh. So being someone that you had help desk positions, or I started taking a networking class I'll never forget. And we were using Cisco Packet Tracer, and I was like, I want to touch the real thing. I want to be able to experience actually pushing the buttons, right? The Packet Tracer was a great tool. But so I jump on eBay and I start, just wanting them, like, okay, well, I'm gonna start off with a networking home lab. It wasn't compute at that time, it was just networking. So and just really the journey started there. I just wanted to just order things and just start tinkering.
So what was the reason behind this? Like, can you go a little bit more deep with this?
I wanted to get more comfortable. I wanted to be more confident, especially when it comes to speaking for job opportunities, to just build more, have more credibility, especially during those interviews. I really wanted to know what it felt like to, touch all this equipment, so that I'm not just speaking and trying to speak it or describe it in theory.
So how did your first home lab look like?
Oh gosh, I ordered my very first one was I think there were Cisco routers, 2621 XM, 2621 XM routers. I think it was a 1950 switch, right? So this is all, 10100 stuff. And then I ordered this just little rack I found online, and just it was like a little short music audio rack. I started scrambling around getting cables, and it was just sitting in a corner of a room. And I would sometimes then roll over, your blue rollover cable, run across from one side of the room to the next into my desk. And just, patch cables hanging from it. So it looked I had a big spacious room, and you had this little thing with wires hanging from it.
How noisy was your first home lab?
Definitely when those things would spin up, they would generate some, a little bit of a noisiness, not compared to what I have now, but it was definitely one of those things where, the family would walk in. My kids were small at that age, so they didn't understand, but my wife would be like, what's going on here? So... And not much heat, not much heat from those things. It wasn't too bad.
So what was your first home lab project?
Oh gosh, in terms of a project, I think it's been a series of mini projects. One of the things I think I got excited when I was able to do with that, go back to the Cisco lab, was it was like, okay, I was able to configure a VLAN on a port. set up a DHCP server, and then actually get an IP. And I was like, wow, I actually was able to achieve all this. I can get into a little bit later on, but I've got other projects that's going into, setting up virtualized environment, right, that are more relevant to VMware. But I think that was like the first coolest thing that I wanted to do. I wanted to know what it was like to have, a server patched into one interface, an endpoint in another one, and then have them talk, and just seeing that like, wow, I did this.
And how did you fund your home lab?
My wife. No, I've been very grateful where, I've been in a position where we're both working, and, the bills were very minimal. So I just really just bought it out, put it on credit card and just pay it off. That's been the key. I just saw it as reinvestment in education.
How your home lab looks right now, and what you have now there?
So right now, everything is in my garage, like literally to the right of me on the other side of the wall. And it's sitting on some kind of like shelving that I got from Costco a while back. And I've got 3 super micro E300, 8-core, microservers for super micro with embedded Intel procs. I've upgraded since then. I've upgraded to all Ubiquiti home network. So I've got Ubiquiti's 10 gig switch in there, 24 port switch. I've got an old, form factor desktop running as my AD server. And I'm maxing out all my ports. I've got 10 gig coming out of my 3 super micros to, do vSAN, vMotion. So and then I've got Synology DS1515 plus, right? Which I think I've maxed out storage on that 5 bay. And it's just that you can really feel the heat generating. I mean, I can't plug anything else in there, otherwise I'm going to short. I even invested in a 1K APC uninterruptible power supply just to once the equipment started getting more and more expensive, it's like, oh crap, I got to protect this stuff a little bit. So it generates a lot of heat. It's very noisy on the other side. And yeah.
How much RAM your home lab has?
So I think I'm at 128 gigs in each server right now. Got 128 gigs. I got about, I think 12 terabytes of storage on the Synology. I almost don't even want to do RAID on it anymore just to get more. So, but yeah, I'm about 120 gigs right now total.
Are you doing any backups for your home lab?
Yeah. So on the power side, obviously it's my APC 1K, the smart UPS I have, which is using cloud. But in terms of storage backups, I am going with Veeam Community Edition. And it's not that I'm having these workloads that I really need to protect, but that's really been one that's, saved me a couple of times. So the Veeam Community Edition is great. I make my Synology my targets. I also throw in, those same PCI cards with the M.2s. I put them in that AD. My AD server is everything, right? It's the one server that runs everything. So I have, with Veeam Community Edition, I can also set the local storage as the target. So, and then recently I've been dabbling with I've been trying to set up Synology's ActiveSync for business. I believe it's called ActiveSync. Forgive me there, Synology. But that's kind of what I've been using as backup. And that's primarily it's really not to want to back everything up. It's really to just test the process, the throughput, and play with that.
What does evolution for your home lab look like?
Oh gosh, the evolution. So it started off with me. So I had missed building PCs, and I started off building a PC, and I was like, well, I'm going to build an AMD this time around, and I'm going to go virtual, right? I'm going to go VMware Workstation and try to squeeze everything into Workstation. And then I get a job, and I'm like, well, now I want to touch physical servers. So I go on eBay, and now I'm upgrading to Dell R610s. And then I'm like, well, I want to put DRAC controllers in here. I want to upgrade the RAID controller battery. I want to buy 10 gig cards for my Dell servers. And then my R610s are then sitting next to my desk. And I'm like, man, this is really, really noisy. And I'm like, well, I'll move them to the garage. All right, move them to the garage. And as I'm expanding on switches, and I was like, wait, I want to, I want to change this around. I have more room. I want to start applying storage. I want to start, get those expanded switches. And then I started hitting lifecycle problems, right, with 6.7. So I was like, well, let me upgrade I found out through some folks online. I was like, wait, I can upgrade the processor on this server. All right, so upgrade the processor on the server. That eventually hits limitations with future versions. All right, time for new servers. And then it evolved from my Dell R610s over to what I have now, which is a Super Micros, which, definitely are still good on ESXi 7 because that's, what I'm running. So, and of course those R610s are, they're still good. I actually, I believe in paying it back. So, I give those servers to folks for free. I said, hey, take this as long as you learn from it. Right. And that's what I've tried to do the most besides, scrapping the metal. And then that's really been the evolution. Went from just starting in VMware Workstation to now having, back-end AD, back-end storage, compute stood up. And, especially, the network has also evolved from just doing I think it was one of the early Asus 802.11 AC routers, or maybe it was N at that time. Oh gosh. So just upgraded from an Asus router and used to present storage that way. They had a USB port and learned about Ubiquiti, and it's like, oh no. And then just upgrading everything, wanted to make it ubiquitous, Ubiquiti, talk to Ubiquiti throughout the house. So that's really how that's how it's evolved.
Tell a little bit more like how you're using and what kind of test you're doing with your home lab.
Yeah. So in my role right now as a technical account manager, for instance, I work with server teams, and the more visibility I have, the more hands-on experience I have with VMware products and other technologies, it gives me more confidence speaking with my customers. It allows me to, we can speak the same language, allows me to dig deeper, and being able to do that in my own home lab, in addition to having more resources now, of course, being at VMware, being able to do it just on my own terms is just a different feeling. Being able to trash it, rebuild it at any time I please. It reinforces your education. Teaching moments. I honestly use my own home lab with like my customers as teaching moments, or I use it as a tool for even when I'm working with folks internally. Like if there's someone I feel like I'm showing things to, trying to play a role as a mentor, I'll use my home lab to demo things. I'll use my home lab to crash it, to prove a point, right? It's totally fine. So it's a multi-tool for me, personal and professional.
So you're demoing products. Are you doing like speaking with customers, and are you doing like pre-sales as well? Or you're just demonstrating how to use it, how to set up, and giving
So what's cool is my role is more post-sales. So it's definitely not to, demo it to sell it. It's kind of, hey, if you click here and go there, this is kind of where that setting is. And then the customer's like, oh, cool. So I kind of use it as a way to, demonstrate it. I use it as a way to demonstrate my knowledge to the customer, and at the same time, demonstrate the solution, right? It's kind of like the knowledge demonstration should come along as you're demonstrating the solution. It's not it's not showing off, right? But it shows like, hey, this person showing me step by step. It helps bring and it should help bring comfort to the person on the other end, I would hope. No, something recently, right? There's a VMware Fling out there called vSphere Diagnostics. I share with my customer, and I'm like, hey, check out this new Fling. It's as simple as 10 minutes. I just loaded up my own home lab, and I was able to run through that Fling live with them, instead of saying, hey, go install this Fling. And then they go back, oh man, Sarge recommended this, and then it dumped our system because of, maybe whatever reason. They used the wrong parameter or something did go wrong. But I'm putting myself at risk first, right? I'm demoing what it's capable of doing, and then it draws interest. Like, oh, that's cool. So that's what I like to use it for. And honestly, I don't feel like I'm even scratching the surface with it. There's so much more I have in mind on things I want to do.
Tell us what you want to do.
I want to, one thing, and time's the hardest thing, but I want to partner up with other folks and have like a, kind of like a little mini incubator. Like, hey, let's set up a VPN between our sites. Let's try stretch storage ourselves. I want to do things like that, but I need time to like, hey, let's set up a Zoom session. Cause there's things that, I'm going to be weak in, like to get our network properly configured on each site, set up the, layer 2, set up a layer 2 VPN, talk site to site, figure out the routing. And I always wanted to do that, and then set up infrastructure, test SRM. I'm trying to find, there's a lot of like-minded folks, but finding time and those individuals that want to spend the time and geek out that way, I think that takes it up the next level. Otherwise, it is sometimes like having a fancy car and you're just not fully using it all the time.
Actually, I love its idea. I want to see how it's gonna vMotion work in like long distance and these things.
Yeah.
And how these things again.
Yeah, all that would be good. So I feel like, the vExpert Slack channel would be maybe a great start. Like, hey, does anyone have this model? Let's check out, let's try doing a vMotion. This way we can avoid, the EVC issues and all that. So
let's make a world record.
Let's do it. Yeah. So that's kind of been it. And really my, in no ways I've arrived, I love doing this stuff. I still don't feel like I know it all. I blog whenever I can on Khizeran.com, and I, just try to get better and always feel mentoring others and returning the favor to others to be better is kind of my, my way of life, my mantra.
And I like as well, like VMware guys say, I always blog about what they're doing it, because another guys can very quickly learn, and it's speed up also learnings and everything, these things, but they're like blogging, writing, everything, sharing their knowledge. This is very cool. I love a lot.
It's really hard to put yourself out there. It's scary, especially people like me, where it's like, man, I've got so much information from people at blogs, and it always seems, you can find so many blogs that just contain step-by-step how to do things. And I don't know why I always been intimidated. I was always like, I don't know enough. Right. I hate to keep using it, but the whole imposter syndrome. So I had to overcome that and say, you know what? I don't care. I'm just going to put it out there. Even if it's a step-by-step doc with 10 steps, I'm going to put it out there just to, who cares? I don't have that large of an audience where I'm being criticized, but I was like, you have to get over that fear. Right. And again, that reinforces your knowledge. So, and then that's why I really want to keep doing it. But I had to overcome that fear of like putting yourself out there. And I think a lot of people, they underestimate themselves, and their capabilities.
They want to be perfect always, and they're afraid to making mistakes.
Yeah, you wait, if you wait for perfection, you'll continue to miss out. So you have to stumble.
How much knowledge have you gained while having a home lab?
I'd say it's definitely improved me in terms of the confidence and troubleshooting, right? In engineering solutions and speaking more confidently. It's definitely been, and helping with certification has been huge, right? Just getting the hands on. I'm battling, a VCAP exam right now, and everything you do in, the VCAP exam deploy is what I can do in the home lab. So that's what it's really provided me. I'm sitting here taking an NSX course, trying to incorporate NSX more in my network to understand it. Like I have to do it. I'm going to be redeploying it several times until it tries to finally stick in my head, right? Like vCenter server, I've probably deployed it so many times and I still haven't deployed it the different ways you can, like with command line, script and all that. So it's like, I mean, the learning never stops, right?
What is the most memorable home lab story you like to share?
So I was using Wemo smart plugs, right? To kind of get in, you know, just watch my consumption and all that and have some kind of control. And I don't know why I'd get up in the morning and everything would be powered off. I can't access the internet on my desktop because my DNS server went down. And I'm like, what's going on? Everything's just like suddenly powering off. And it's happening. And I'm like, is something tripping with the Wemo? Like the Wemo's powering off. I'm going to bed one night and I hear, Alexa, turn the lights off. It was my son. So that turned the lights off. If then else moment was powering off all my Wemos. So that right there led to my home lab going down every time my son was turning the lights off at night. So here I am, you know, encouraging, and of course, encouraging him, you know, like, hey, you know, use this technology, talk to your Echo and do all this. And he's powering my lights off. So he had to change his language to Alexa, turn the left light off. And it was able to, suddenly that was able to fix it. And eventually led to me just removing the Wemo entirely. But I thought that was, that actually happened pretty recent.
Do you have any scary or more funny home lab story?
I'd say the only scary thing would be what would be as if my, I think, wife was to ever see, like, what the hell does this thing actually cost? So that'd probably be the scariest thing, but not too much of a, not too much of a, you know, funny thing. Besides, the kids tease me all the time, you know, when I try to, you know, dad starts talking tech and geek. So they start mimicking everything I say.
What do you also think about you when they see your home lab?
They start thinking like, oh, why the hell are you doing this? One person, family member's like, hey, you should start hosting. I'm like, oh boy, I'm like, this is the last thing I need to do is like learning how to host services and then secure my network. I probably can get away with it somehow with all the gear I have, but I don't know about the mental capacity. So they just think, you know, you're a madman, you know, and then I've got the family. They're like, hey, you know, good for you. It's supportive. So yeah, they tease me.
What is home lab for you?
To those that see cars, the mechanics have a passion for cars and want to work on that. Like that's my niche. That's my vice. I mean, that's what I like to tinker with. It's, you know, it's the one thing that, you know, makes me happy. And so it's really come a long ways.
What one piece of advice would you give for beginner home labbers?
Cheap is expensive. Expensive is cheap. So check your interoperabilities, check your, you know, your compatibility lists. You know, obviously there's more and more on forums now. Check different configurations. I mean, I leaned on, before investing in the E300s, I try to research it as much as I can. And even at that time, it was still maybe not enough. So try as close as you can to do it right. Otherwise, it will be more costly. I mean, sometimes it's like, oh, wait, I want Cat 6 cables. Oh, now that I'm introducing 10 gig, now you're researching, you know, SFP plus cable, you know, SFP plus cables, DAC cables. You're researching, you know, vendors that, you know, are they compatible with the switch that you have? It starts to, as you're adding on these layers, there's more to check. And of course, this is not an enterprise, right? But so we're not going to get the best of the best. But, you know, it can get costly. Then suddenly you start adding up on all these little packages, boxes that are coming in from Amazon. You know, I'm ordering M.2 cards to load M.2s. Then I'm getting rid of those because I'm putting in another card that's going to work with my Supermicro. So it's just, my best advice is to really invest in the quality stuff. It does not hurt if you're able to, and try to get it right the first time.
Sargon, thank you so much for joining and have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Anders. Happy home labbing.
You've been listening to the Home Labbers Podcast. Our passion is to interview the leading IT experts and get tech enthusiasts all the information they need to become an expert. So if you run at-home enterprise hardware and software and you like tinkering and self-learning, then you've found your new podcast. Thanks for listening. We hope you enjoyed the show. Make sure to like, rate, and review. And we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hit up the website at vundo.tech, on Twitter at #VUndoTrending and #HomeLab. See you next time on the Home Labbers Podcast.